if you just use the set up, it's up in the first row.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if you would kindly turn off all cell phones and electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
I've learned that in times of separation and loss and sorrow, the Psalms can bring much comfort and solace. In this spirit, I now recite from the 23rd Psalm, this great Psalm of faith. And these words remind us that even when we feel alone or lonely, we are never truly alone, for God is with us. And we know that God is with Norman, with Norm. Mizmor David, Adonai Roi lo aksar. We join together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I would like to continue with this modern day poem which we read at our synagogue from time to time. Norm certainly would have heard it. I think he liked it. He never told me otherwise. But I'd like to personalize it for him. At the rising of the sun and at its going down, we will remember Norm. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember Grandpa, Papa. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember him. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we will remember him. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember Norm. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember him. As long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, when we are lost and sick at heart, when we have joy we crave to share, when we have decisions that are difficult to make, when we have achievements that are based on his, we will remember Norman. As long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. We may not all know one another, although we may, and yet we all feel connected by our love and respect and admiration for Norman, Norm, Grandpa, Papa. Our shared loss is sad and difficult and profound because Norm was such a constant and a positive presence in your lives. He was always there for you as your family. He was always there for everyone, ready to offer assistance, to show care and concern. Indeed, the greatest joy in life is to be able to say, I still have something to do. I want to accomplish yet more. And so he did. Norm never stopped going and doing and reaching and hoping. Therefore, I believe that Norm might say to all of us right now, actually, he would begin by saying, thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting and loving my family. Because he was very gracious. And then he might go on to say, don't mourn for me, for I did not lead a mournful life. And you know, in the balance, he did not. He led a full, fulfilling, purposeful, and good life, in spite of many challenges in recent years. In a word, and I got this word from the family, he was strong-willed, which actually means stubborn. But he was stubborn in a good way, meaning he was stubborn in that he took pride in everything that he did, and he wanted it to come out well, and it seemed as if there was nothing he couldn't do. Your dad had a brilliant mind. He was brilliant. He earned a master's degree in engineering from Drexel. He almost completed a second master's degree in mathematics. For 37 years, Norm served as an electrical engineer at RCA, Boeing, Lockheed Martin. He had a very strong work ethic, was highly respected by his colleagues. He designed missile systems for the Defense Department, among many other accomplishments, and he was very modest about what he did. Norman likewise had a strong sense of duty for his work, for his family, and for his country. At the age of 17, he enlisted in the United States Navy, and he served with honor till 1948. Norm had many interests, many passions. Loved reading, loved completing a challenging crossword puzzle. He enjoyed boating and fishing and skiing, which he continued well into his 70s. He loved the beach, and he especially loved Florida. And he was looking forward to getting back to Florida. However, one cannot speak of Norman alone without also speaking of you, Golda, his devoted and loving wife of 61 years. And devoted is truly the word. Yours is a true love story. You were both born in Brooklyn, right? Center of the universe. You first met at the beach club, and Norman was totally smitten, even though he then lost your phone number. And your husband was the most romantic man, and he loved reading poetry to you. And over your 61 years, you evolved into a real team, a true partnership, best friends, soulmates. You were there for one another in the good times, so many good times, and the challenging times, and there were certainly those as well. Norman even taught you how to drive a car. How'd that go? Not so well. So as a result, he drove you everywhere. He would wait patiently for you to finish whatever you were doing. He took such good care of you.
I know that.
Yeah. And you took good care of him too.
Yes, I did.
And he loved you very much. And that love, that kind of love, never ends. And one of the last gifts Norman gave to you is it's a book of poetry, and there's one poem to be read for every day of the year. So Golda, I can't even begin to imagine how much you will miss your life's partner. And how Norman loved you, his children, Janet and Tim, and Jeff and Renee, and Carol, and grandchildren, Rachel, Michael, Jacob, Joshua, Jessica, Adam, Jennifer, Ethan, Rebecca, and Caleb. Were you counting? 10. I count 10. And most of you are here today to tell your grandpa, Pop-Pop's really good story. And I know how proud he was of all of you. He was proud of your outstanding achievements, and prouder yet of the bright, sensitive, and caring family that you are. And And Norm is also survived by and will be profoundly missed by his dear brother George and by your wife Cecile, known as Sissy, and by your family. Norman felt your constant support, care, concern, and love. And he will most definitely live on in you and through your sacred stories and precious memories. However, I believe that one can best understand and appreciate a person by the way in which one copes with adversity and setbacks and disappointment and illness and loss. Norman had more than his share of medical challenges. 15 years ago, he developed heart issues. 5 years ago, he experienced kidney failure. He also dealt with prostate cancer and skin cancer. But you might not be aware of any of these conditions because he took it all in stride and he did whatever he needed to do. He didn't want to slow down. He just wanted to live. This past year was especially difficult and trying with countless ER visits. And your dad so loved life and living, he didn't want to leave you. He didn't want to leave Golda. But he never stopped inspiring and motivating you and those around him. One could say that Norman lived and then he died. I mean, he lived really fully and then he died. However, he died knowing that along with you, Golda, he helped to raise and guide and teach children and grandchildren who in turn have so much to offer to others. You are his precious legacy. Norm loved, he was loved in turn. We know that this love has not ended now with his passing. Life must go on. Life will go on. It will resume a kind of natural order eventually, and he would certainly want it that way. But our love for your husband and your father and your brother and your grandfather can never be taken away. May Norman's memory make life all the more precious to us. May his memory inspire us to labor for a world in which every life shall find its fulfillment as he found his. For as long as we live, he too will live. For he is now a part of us as we remember him. And to keep those memories going, I'm first going to call on Janet.
Thank you all for coming. I know for a lot of you this was not easy to make it here. And for those of you watching on live stream, because we are now pretty technical. Hi, Josh and Ethan. Welcome. We're here to celebrate my dad, Norm Klavens, and his life. Dad was 90. He suffered so terribly and for so long that many of us who witnessed it wished for it all to mercifully end quickly. Yet here we are, devastated, shattered. Our pain and loss is a testament to how important he was to so many of us. The man was a constant in my life and one of my best friends. Oof, I can do this. He dropped by multiple times a week. He skied with us, vacationed with us, celebrated our birthdays, attended every holiday, baseball game, swim meet, music concert. He babysat at sleepovers in his boat, joined us on the beach. A meal wasn't quite complete unless he raved about it or gave it his signature, fed. Norm Klavens was incredibly devoted to his family, all of his relatives. There was no distance too far, no event too minor to keep him away. And you know that, for those of you who have had the occasions over the years. The man somehow dragged himself to my son Joshua's bar mitzvah right after his femoral artery was nicked from a knee replacement. For Ethan and Caleb's graduations, he was so ill he could barely move or lift his head. But he came nonetheless. No excuses for this guy. He wouldn't even consider missing these milestone events. I know he was quite upset that he would not live to attend Cousin Leah's wedding. I can guarantee you all his spirit is here with us right now. There is no way he would miss a family get-together. He loved you all so much. Your lives were his life. Your worries were his. He was a fixer, a problem solver, and an optimist. He rescued so many of us so many times. He was my family's emergency plumber, mechanic, and babysitter. After his heart surgery, when he wasn't recovering, his bodily functions were shutting down, and he was unable to swallow food very well or breathe very well. Somehow he was shocked when he learned his death was imminent. I told you, he was an optimist. Anyway, after hearing the terrible news, his automatic response was, "What will happen to your mom?" His love for her was so great. I'm convinced he stayed alive so long for her. He just didn't want to let her down. My friend Jen put this perfectly. His body may have been weak, but it was never too weak to support my mom. Another example of his beautiful heart occurred during hospice on the day before becoming unresponsive. While my cousins Joe and Lori were visiting to say goodbye, he began crying. Alarmed, I asked if he was okay. He replied, "I'm just so happy." He'd just been told his very ill great-nephew was given medicine that allowed him to begin speaking and walking again. Although my father had everything to cry about, his tears were happy ones for someone else. He didn't feel sorry for himself, and he didn't allow his obstacles to keep him down. When he was 75 or 80, I'm not sure which, he single-handedly hoisted a hot water heater onto the roof of his car, tied it down, and then by himself hauled it into his house. At 84, the man who needed a shoulder replacement and had only one working arm at the time replaced his bathroom, including tiling the floors and walls. At 90, exhausted from dialysis and bent over with a back resembling the crook of a candy cane, he refused help. Fiercely independent, he mowed his lawn and went food shopping, even though it was a painful shuffle just getting out of his car. He never allowed any excuses to keep him from doing what had to be done. The man was a testament to the idea that nothing is impossible. That was also so much fun, a master storyteller, sharing his daring exploits, his practical jokes, and his fond memories. Watching his blue eyes sparkle and a smile light up his face was captivating for us all. Many of these stories made me start believing he was part Superman and invincible. In college, he finished his final early and luckily changed his ticket for an earlier flight, for his original flight crashed, killing everyone. Another near miss occurred as an elevator door opened for him. He saw there were tall timber pieces sticking out of the top because they were too tall. He He wisely decided to wait for another elevator. Good thing he did. The doors closed. He heard a loud crash and screams. The timber had crashed against the ceiling, killing everyone in the elevator. Another time in Puerto Rico, this is a fun one, a drunken bartender, his name was Mom, not you, Mom, took out a picture of Roosevelt, he used to say Roosevelt, and said, "Salute the president." Luckily, my dad saluted because the bartender shot the man who did not salute. Dad survived being hit by a car while crossing the street, survived prostate cancer, heart attacks, end-stage renal failure, constant skin cancers, congestive heart failures. He had many more lives than the cat's 9. Perhaps it was his stubbornness. He refused to die. Norm Klavens was the embodiment of the line from Dylan Thomas's poem, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage, rage against the dying of the light." Dad, we will remember your indomitable spirit, your willingness to help, your generosity, and the love and laughter you brought to our lives. Mom, did you want to say your line, or do you want me to say it for you? I'm going to say it for you.
Oh, I'm gonna say it in me.
Okay, come on.
But don't leave me.
I won't leave you. Come on.
I'll get you.
So Mom, looking in the coffin, had these wise, wise words to share. Do you see it?
I see.
Okay.
You're not gone because you'll be forever in my heart. And that's the truth.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm going to call on Norm's brother, George.
I usually don't give advice, but I have a piece of advice for you. Never speak after Janet. Last we were all together, it was in celebration of Norman's 90th birthday. Of course, we knew that that day was a rehearsal for this day. So let this day be another celebration of a long life well lived. Norm was my big brother. Being 10 years my senior, he was like a second father to me. I really was a very lucky kid to have two wonderful fathers. Norm was smart, handsome, adventurous, and very kind. Qualities that I wish I'd had when I grew up. It's good to have ideals to work toward, even if they're impossible to reach. Norm was the firstborn in our immediate family and the first grandchild in the extended. He was therefore an exceptionally good boy, responsible, well-behaved, for he carried the banner of the entire family. He had to succeed, and succeed he did. Throughout my childhood, I'd be amazed at activities he embraced. This was Brooklyn. This was East Flatbush. This was punch bowl and stick bowl and stoop balls region. I didn't know anybody who played tennis and golf. And how did he think of trading his barbells with a friend for skis? What did you do with skis anyway? He really embodied the American dream. He could have been on a Norman Rockwell Saturday Evening Post magazine cover. he had a newspaper delivery route. He worked his way through high school and contributed to our family's meager support as an usher at the glamorous Brooklyn Paramount movie theater. That was his first uniform, and in that uniform, he looked more like a movie star than an usher. Norm also pushed racks of fur skins through the Manhattan streets in the brutal summer heat. He stirred boiling vats of peanut brittle in a candy factory. Best of all, he'd bring samples home of the peanut brittle, not the furs. So Josh, if you're listening carefully, samples for family is a really... Norm excelled at school and he was accepted to Brooklyn Tech, a prestigious exam high school in Brooklyn. He was headed toward engineering, but his other dream of becoming an Annapolis plebe was not to be. Stubborn, he decided against an opportunity at West Point and joined the U.S. Navy instead. At age 8, I was heartbroken when Norm left for the Navy, and later when he left for Syracuse University. But the flow of letters, rich with detail about his exploits in San Juan, Puerto Rico, helped me feel his presence. He'd write about training, being on duty, some of his mischievous pranks. At the time, Norm was not a coffee drinker. When he was on night watch duty to stay awake, instead, he'd eat noodle soup, which he'd heat up in a handy coffee pot. His buddies were surprised and not the least bit pleased the next morning to find noodles in their coffee. I would tease him by starting my letters with salutation, "Dear Salty," because to his disappointment and embarrassment, he never set foot on a Navy ship. He was even flown to his assignment in Puerto Rico. Now, actually, he almost became the Puerto Rican branch of our family. But he had a tempting job offer that was to begin right after his discharge from active service. Lucky for us, the job fell through. Now, outside the family, the lively, witty, engaging Norman was a little shy and cautious. All my little girl classmates were in love with him, as were, I think, some of our girl cousins. But he hadn't any serious romantic relationships. And when I was in late high school, and maybe a little more advanced, that was good for me, I tried to introduce him to some college girls I was friendly with, some of whom, well, how shall I put it, were a bit in advance of the women's movement and the sexual revolution. They liked him a lot. They were ready, willing, and able. He was not the least bit interested. What was he waiting for, I wondered? What was wrong with him? Later, I found out that it was on his trip to Florida that he met his dream girl, or re-met her, because we heard he'd already lost Golda's phone number. His dream girl, of course, the love of his life, Golda Friedlander. She was tall with dark, soulful eyes, and ever so pretty. She was smart, had a sense of humor. It was a perfect match. Now, Norman had what we might think of as a somewhat old-fashioned view of marriage. My wife won't work outside the house, he proclaimed. Well, Golda was a teacher, and she taught him a thing or two. Now, it wasn't her logic that would win him over, and there are many differences of opinion, because between you and me, she really wasn't all that logical. It was her persistence, her generosity, and mixed with sweetness and her boundless love that just dissolved Norm's previously rigid stance. For Norm, family was everything, but not just immediate family, but everyone who wanted to be like family. His friends who'd been neighbors in his teen years became lifelong friends. known to this very day as the boys. Now, do you know anybody who doesn't have a single enemy in the world? I've known two, Norm and our father. I'm not in that group. It was just his character. It was etched in like hardware. Maybe Norm doesn't even deserve credit for it because it was just the way he was. To his very last years, Norm would keep me up to date on the lives of his old friends, some of whom I'd never even met. And yet I felt like they were my friends because I knew them through him. He was always my big brother, but eventually we became almost equals and certainly friends. Of course, Norm was very proud of his kids and grandchildren, so I was kept up to date on birthdays, illnesses, surgeries, injuries, school grades, diving competitions, college and grad school admissions, and other accomplishments, large and small. But Norm wasn't bragging. He was sharing and including. And who will be the bearer of glad tidings and sad ones too? Who will inherit the role of being the family glue? Who will carry the banner going forward? Norm was an engineer and found success at RCA as an electronics engineer, working on missiles that he hoped would help keep the peace and keep us safe. He built things, repaired things, improved things. They could be mechanical devices or they could be relationships. He never gave in and he never gave up. His creed was simple: hard work, determination gets jobs done. Failure was not an option. When he faced illness and disability, he found creative workarounds, always. Now, my hand surgery has left me temporarily disabled. I talk about my boo-boo, Sissy cutting my food for me. But how many times had I telephoned Norm to ask how much pain he was in as he awaited shoulder replacement surgery, to have him say, well, he was fine, but he was just frustrated because it was taking him longer than expected to hang the cabinets in the remodeled kitchen so that he was fixing with just one arm. I hope the food later is picked up because I can't cut my food. It's just who he was. But even Norman was no match for his final illness. It was after a heroic cardiac surgery, which he believed would allow him to get back to his beloved Florida, that he finally yielded to his fate. Now, knowing him, he probably still thinks he's on his way there now. I often wonder if his love for Florida was connected to Florida being the place that he connected with Golda. I know I've gone on way too long, and I apologize. But like the rabbi on the high holidays, it feels like it's my only chance. It's not possible to sum up such a long, rich life in a few minutes. And also, I'm only 80 years old, and I still feel much too young to say goodbye to my big brother. But we did say goodbye by phone just a few days before he died. We were able, through our tears, to express our love for each other. And then Norm, with hardly any breath or voice left at all, told me how much he loved and appreciated all of you. Norman gave us a great deal. It was not a one-way deal, and he wanted all of us to know that. So as we try to find our way onward from here, we have to keep on telling our Norman stories. A lot of the more personal ones we'll talk about later. We can remember what Norm gave us, what we gave him, and what we still can give to one another. That's what will help us to heal to move forward and to carry Norman forward along with us. Shalom, big brother. Shalom, my good friend.
I would like to call on Jeff.
So my father was just a wonderful role model. He taught us how to be a great father, grandfather, brother. He was just terrific in everything he did. He had such a sense of integrity. He was always honest. As a kid, he was always working. He never got to play organized sports. But if there was an Olympic event for turning a screw with a screwdriver, he would have been the world champ. He could turn a screwdriver. I would use two hands and my weight as leverage, as tight as I could. And he was so powerful in his hands and wrists and forearms, he would just, like butter, he would turn it 4 or 5 more turns and tell me how good I tried. But to understand and know about my father, for me, the defining moment, one of them in my father's life, was in 1973. The end of the Vietnam War was being talked about, troops being pulled out, and what that meant was, of course, the defense contracts were now shutting down. My father made his living as a talented engineer, and the defense industry was shutting down, which meant there's going to be layoffs. So layoffs were nothing new to my father. He had been laid off once before. He knew what it was like to be out of work. He knew what it was like to get that slip and to be punched in the stomach, to take all the air out of you and to know that the next check, who knows when it's going to come in. Where's the next job coming from? But my father, he had such integrity. He had seniority rights at this point because he had been with the company for roughly 20 years. So the way the system worked was the senior folks, when they got their notice that they're being laid off, they had the right to bump someone who had less seniority. My father had the ability to go to one of his coworkers with less seniority and take their job and hand them the layoff slip. And as my father's coworkers, when they all got their slips and pandemonium set in, and everyone was panicking, and his coworkers were targeting the people that they would select as their victims to take their jobs, my father didn't play that game. He could have, he was entitled to, he knew what would happen if he didn't, but he would rather go down with the ship and drown than take a life jacket away from someone else and watch them drown. That was my father. And drown he did. He went down with the ship, he took his layoff, and he was out of work for 6 months without any income coming in, the bills piling up. But that's the integrity that my father had. That's who he was, and I couldn't have been prouder of him for it. At the high holidays, we sing the prayer, Albino Volcano, our Father, our King. Where here lies my Albino Volcano. Rest in peace, Dad, and thanks for showing us the way.
As we begin to conclude our service, I would like to read this poem, which I feel is very appropriate for Norman and expresses his view, his philosophy of life and living. I'd like to read it as if he would be responding to these magnificent tributes here today. But the response is the poem. Okay. Don't grieve for me, for now I'm free. I'm following the path God laid for me. I took God's hand when I heard God call. I turned my back and I left it all. I could not stay another day to laugh, to love, to work or play. Tasks left undone must stay that way. I found that place at the close of day. If my parting has left a void, then fill it with remembered joy. A friendship shared, a laugh, a kiss, yes, these things I too will miss. Be not burdened with times of sorrow. I wish you the sunshine of tomorrow. My life's been full, I savored much, good friends, good times, a loved one's touch. Perhaps my time seemed all too brief. Don't lengthen it now with undue grief. Lift up your heart and share with me. God wanted me now. God set me free. Let us all rise. And I'm going to continue with the El Mole Rachamim prayer, which has Norm's Hebrew name, Nocham, which means to comfort. El Mole Rachamim Shochein Bamromi. Hamitzei Menucha Nachona Takat Kanfe Hashchina Nocham Shachalak Lo Baal harachamim yitzra bitra hachayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato v'yanua b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest unto the soul of our beloved Norm, who has departed from this world. Lord of mercy, bring him into your presence and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be thou his possession, and may he rest in peace as he lived his entire life at peace with himself and with others. And we say, Amen. And you may be seated. I have been asked to announce that following the service at Locustwood Memorial Park in Cherry Hill, the family will be returning to the O'Neill residence, 501 Garwood Drive, where they will welcome all family and friends. It will be your opportunity to tell your own stories and memories of this Superman.
May we have the pallbearers, please? I will ask everyone to rise once more, please.
So you guys have one.
Folks, if anyone is going with us to the cemetery, we'll just ask you just if you could start to make your way to your cars, headlights and flashers on, and we'll be able to get to you. Thank you.